everybody can hear. The more you laugh, oh my goodness, the more you fill with glee. The more
the more we're merry are we. Ha ha, ho ho, he. The more we're merry are we.
Welcome all, and thanks for coming. And also I just want to say thanks to all the people that have made this happen, especially Stephen Armstrong for giving me this amazing opportunity. All my work in the last 20 years as a writer, a director, actor, teacher, whether through my shows, my walkabout adventures, my attempts at singing or making films, unproduced television, diving off bridges into the River Thames, dancing, have all been focused towards breaking down barriers in comedic exploration. And this sermon is a gigantic bookmark on that same wonderful trip. And I hope you get the same buzz like the speakers, not like the speakers, that I did in preparing it. And I aspire to do it justice here today. This podium is where the library invigilator used to sit, observing readers along the lines of a Jeremy Bentham panopticon prison, making sure there was no talking and no sleeping. As to how they dealt with these infringements is unclear. I imagine them descending with a prod or a taser, perhaps. I was going to bring my leaf blower, but it was a bit awkward on the bicycle, so I've left it at home in my cupboard of things of dubious usefulness, along with our teas made and an uncompleted time capsule. Thanks also to Mark Jones and Adam Murphy for the marvellous music, more of which later. Now, I'm going to speak for about 25 minutes, give or take the unscripted riff, after which there will be sweet refreshments on the lawn. We've put a tab on a frozen yogurt van, so you can tuck in if you waive your program. And if things seem to be drying up, I'm going to be offering spontaneous baptisms for anyone so moved. And the last bit may also involve a short funeral service for any gags that die during proceedings. And I've made a cardboard coffin down here for that. And we can all therapeutically wail and mourn for those in a rejuvenating way when the time comes. And that's all the admin. Right. On humour. The Book of Hugh, pages 2 to 3, lines 21 to 22, and 36 to 37. Any list of things people do have one underlying theme. All the things we do express our desire to be taken seriously. We want to be authentic, legitimate, and worthy of attention. We cannot bear to be belittled. Among the factors that explain why we do the things that we do, this one, to be taken seriously, is sovereign. And I want to throw up an alternative to that from the book of Greg and Amira, chapter 1, page 14, lines 1 to 5. Blonde, attractive, GSOH, vivacious 34-year-old, likes Simply Red, looking for someone caring and affectionate who can make her laugh. Our greatest aspiration in our personal relations is that we have a good sense of humor. GSOH for short. And my friends who date tell me that GSOH is now added as default on dating site registration forms. You have to be funny to be eligible for love. High stakes. So, the book of Hugh, be serious. The book of Greg and Amira, be funny. So often in life, our sources contradict each other. And not just making sense of that, but acting upon it. Acting upon these contradictory thrusts is our life's work. And I'm going to try and explore these contradictory aspirations today. To be serious and to be funny. This is a sermon that is about being funny, but it is also an invitation to be serious and an invitation to be silly at the same time. I don't want you to go out of this hall today and be a moron. I want you to be an oxymoron. I want you to be seriously funny. Now, I'm going to ask a question. It has a yes or no response, but because of this 6-second delay in the magnificent dome that we're in, and the tight schedule that we're on, if you could just vigorously nod or shake your head, rather than saying your response out loud, that would be very helpful. So, this is the question. Can you hear me? Okay, good. I'm seeing lots of nodding. I'm also seeing a couple of rotational movements, which unfortunately I can't do anything about. Sorry about that. Because if I speak any slower, we're not going to get to the end. And if I speak any louder, the reverberations are going to get detrimental. So perhaps if you are one of those people, if you could sort of move yourself nearer to a speaker or come down the front, that would please do that. Now, my university supervisor, Ollie Double, the first doctor of humour in the world, said to me that the first rule of comedy is to be heard. But to understand what it is to be heard, you have to understand what it is to listen. And I expect aspirations toward that heightened state of existence here today. I need your serious attention to what I'm about to tell you, for there will be apparent contradictions, like the one I just mentioned, and alleyways of the mind that require paradigm shifts in your way of being to navigate. Be heard, listen, shift your paradigms. There's so many rules in humor. I know of at least 5 books in print that have the title, How to Be Funny. And many more glossy examples cover the same area. Each has its own set of rules, sometimes expressed in formula, often in technical guidance. Last year, one came out with a set of 150 rules. The first rule of comedy, I said to Ollie in reply, is surely to be funny. But funny to who? You think this is funny? You don't think this is funny. You might not look like you find it funny, but maybe you're laughing on the inside. You might find it funny later. Now, if you tell a few people it was funny and come back to hear it again, if it was on again, it would be very funny. All the more so if we were charging for tickets. Because you have then invested in its funniness. And what is investment if not a demonstration of belief? Faith is critical. If I say to you, you are funny, you are. or you say to you, or you to you, yeah, or not, yeah, maybe you know, or not you. Actually, you're not funny. No, I'm just joking. I'm just joking. You are actually, you're very funny. You are especially funny today. But how? Yes, how are we funny? There are three groups of theory about the nature of humor, what it is, and how it works. Incongruity, relief, and superiority. The most dominant of these is incongruity. From the 21st book of Emmanuel, pages 58, lines 12 to 13. To raise a hearty, convulsive laugh, replace logic and familiarity with things that don't normally go together. Something absurd. In other words, we expect one outcome and another happens. Here, for example, in the back of my book, is a mummified bat. That is the incongruity theory in action. Not everything that is incongruous is funny. But things that are funny tend to have some incongruity about them. But let's file away the mummified bat for now and move on to humour theory number 2. Relief. From the 17th book of Sigmund. Joking, like dreaming, serves as a safety valve for forbidden feelings and thoughts. And when we express what is usually inhibited, the energy of repression is released in laughter. Now, talking about personal ablutions is generally something people are inhibited about. Even in our dish and tell times, the phrase "too much information" gets thrown at us if things get a bit too personal. Even in contemporary humorous performance, where a larger-than-life liberal license is granted, a level of acceptable grossness has to be found when enacting the relief theory. Pondering that level, several graphic images come to my mind. I'm sitting in the Spiegel tent a few weeks ago at a children's show, and a pair of authentic-looking poo-stained undies are thrown from the stage into my face. Years earlier, an outrageous magician has just pulled off an incredible disappearing act. Poof! And then triumphantly re-enters the auditorium wearing a 3-foot-long strap-on penis. And this penis has a pump-action lever that he uses to squirt out a milk-like substance on the unsuspecting audience, who, ecstatic with the hilarity of relief, lap it up. Now, the third and last of these theories, but also the oldest, is superiority. The book of Plato. Socrates says to Protarchus, "Do you realize that when we see a comedy, the soul experiences a mixture of pleasure and pain?" And Protarchus says, "Huh?" Socrates, "It is somewhat difficult to see this mixture of feelings in our reaction to comedy. Protarchus. Socrates. The malicious man is pleased at his neighbour's misfortune. Protarchus. Now, there's a German word, Schadenfreude, that describes this feeling that Socrates is trying to explain to Protarchus, who, in case you hadn't noticed, was his pet dog. It's the enjoyment we feel at the suffering of others. So there we have it. The three very easily disproved theories of humour. Freud, Mummy Freud, that's in the bin, and Schadenfreude. But what about the practice? I have attempted to do a grouping into 4 types, and I'm calling them humours. In medieval times, it was widely believed that the body was made up of 4 humours or fluids: black bile, blood, phlegm, and choleric. And if people became ill, it was because they had too much of one of these fluids. And a doctor would then apply a leech to the area where the unwanted excess was and have it sucked out. The 4 humours that I am proposing here today in relation to our contemporary usage of the word are not dissimilar in that they also need delicate balancing. Now, I'm not suggesting that we put leeches in our armpits, though that could well be hilarious. But we cannot ignore each element, and we must passionately monitor their emphases. And the first of these is called toxic humour. Now, there are going to be offensive things in this section, but rest assured they are all necessary in our pursuit of the pathway to a higher humour. And I beg your forgiveness for what you are about to receive. See, I've not been looking forward to this section because up until Wednesday, I was going to have to re-perform the royal prank call that was made last year by 2 Sydney radio broadcasters and resulted in the suicide of one of the nurses that was involved. And it wasn't pleasant, or even pleasantly unpleasant. It was just unpleasant. Thankfully, though, Tim Matheson, those who don't know, the first bloke of Australia, has come in with a less tragic alternative. Speaking in his role as Men's Health Ambassador for the government, he told guests at an official reception, the digital examination, and he is referring here to the sort of digit you have on your hand, as opposed to some newfangled electronic item. The digital examination is the only true way to get reading on your prostate. So make sure you go and do that. And perhaps look for a small Asian female doctor is probably the best way. Is that toxic? There were laughs, apparently. Can we even call it a joke? The Age newspaper thought it was, and a racist, sexist, and sizist one at that. They could probably have thrown in homophobia and ageism as well, but it's already covering a lot of territory. Australian filmmaker Corrie Chen tweeted in response to their article, "As an Asian woman with small hands, I thought what Tim Matheson said was just common sense." So, does Tim Matheson deserve to be prohibited from speaking at further public engagements, as the Prime Minister's team seems to have done, and not for the first time? Or should he be heartily applauded, even laughed with, for relieving the energy of repression around male health issues by airing the taboo of anal examination? Or, if Tim had been introduced to a large-handed male proctologist and given the once-over, could we laugh then? In toxic humour, one person's joke is another person's insult. But what if we were to turn this toxicity upon ourselves? Does that make it okay? Is it offensive if we willingly sacrifice ourselves upon the altar of the audience's mirth? A sort of reverse or inverted Schadenfreude, where we invite and enjoy our audience's pleasure at our self-sufficient suffering. You probably have come across examples of this. It's a common defense mechanism in blokey environments where you make humour out of your own abnormalities. A young friend of mine who has larger than average ears, for example, refers to himself as the elephant in the room. And whilst this has a neutralizing effect on hostile jokers, the black cloud of stolen thunder hangs over the reverse Schadenfreudian. It does little to open our minds to the joyous possibilities that are available to us as humorists. But we'll come back to them. The second type of humour is sentimentality. Wary of stepping over this line of toxicity in the sandpit of our life, we retreat to the territory of the sentimental, the desexed dad jokes, and the homegrown Christmas cracker pun. What is a ghost's favourite food? Why did the toilet roll go down the hill? How can you tell if a dinosaur has been in the fridge? Oh, sorry. Ice cream to get to the bottom, footprints in the butter. And entertaining babies falls into this category. Here's my face. Oh, it's gone. It's gone. Here's my face again. Oh, it's gone again. Yeah, we can do this. Comedians pull back and reveal all over the place. But adults who have perhaps lost touch with their childlike sense of fun, and many of us have, need more. We actually need a bit of unpleasantness to satisfy our sense of humour. Something a bit more grown up. Something that can ameliorate mortality's bleak implications, perhaps. But the unpleasantness that we crave must be pleasantly dealt with. If it gets too toxic, it spoils the fun. We need it to be edgy, but not offensive. Racy, but not racist. Deploying relief and incongruity theory without veering into the toxic toxic zone, or getting too superior, or retreating into sentimentality. And the type of humour that does all this, I'm giving the name functional. And the main thing about functional humour is that people laugh. What triggers this response may be completely forgettable, beyond the moment of its delivery. But that is no matter to the functional humorist. All that really matters is that they do or they say things and people laugh. And you can study this. You can do it yourself. Get one of the glossy guidebooks with the rules that I mentioned earlier, or you can do a class, a workshop, a degree course even. And then perhaps once you've graduated from your school of hard knocks, you can try open slots, comedy festivals, plays and sketch shows, deploying all the techniques that you've learned. Laugh, speak, rising inflections, callbacks and deprecations. In 2 years, you could be a millionaire. You could have your own series on television. And you could even be starring in the next Hollywood blockbuster. All the techniques of the functional humorist are essential aspects of the craft of performing humor. And they can transform anything you care to call material into neat, laugh-ready packages. But whilst they succeed in garnering laugh responses, and with the right marketing mix, larger and larger laugh responses, without the intangible investment of the soul, this is merely the business of comedy. We are aspiring here today for something more, something that requires a part of you, something personal. For we are nurturing not the functional craft of laugh-making, but the humorous art of you and your life. Functional humor may lead to notional success when measured in simple numeric terms. But in order to achieve the success that comes from the fourth and last humor that I'm going to talk about today, soul humor, there is a much greater risk involved, because we have to fail. And our success will be in terms of that and how well we do that. In other words, we have to be successful at failing. So how do we fail? First, we have to have an aspiration, a place to ascend to that ideally has many difficult obstacles to overcome before we can reach the summit. Like life, but with a higher purpose. A pleasantness beyond the clouds of pleasant unpleasantness. And this climb must be genuine and must be seriously pursued, no matter what kind of mountain it is that you're aspiring to conquer. The aspiration can be amazing, but it must be possible. It must be realistic. And no matter how big, it must be filled with real feeling, with sentiment, but not sentimentality. Now, you may be thinking, hang on a minute, Hitler had aspirations. Pol Pot had them. Where are we going here? I don't know of any laughs emanating from that era or those eras. But this is where the balancing of our four humours comes into play. Let us test our aspiration. Is it toxic? Hitler, Pol Pot fail at the first hurdle. But you don't have to. Your aspiration can be non-toxic, ambitious, for the greater good. It may even involve a degree of risk to your person, or not, as long as it is bigger than yourself. Toxic aspirations kill. They are not of life, and we cannot sustain them. And sustain we must, because we will fail. And when we fail, we must aspire again to achieve our goal. The Book of Winston. Success is the ability to go from failure to failure without losing your enthusiasm. And it may be that finally you achieve your goal. You conquer your Everest, and that may serve as your punchline. But the building blocks of this success, and there are many of them, are failures. Here, I think we have a starting point. At these moments of collapse, for it is here that we see for the first time the soul of the humorist. In our joyful understanding, acceptance and celebration of our failures, our lost footing, our falls, our humanity, we discover that each slip leads to an answer, a pathway to our next perilous ravine that we will also bravely face and painfully traverse with a serious intent and a soul full of good humor. The soon-to-be-published Book of Tom. This is the story of my mentee's marathon bicycle trek across northern Mongolia from a town called Moron to another smaller town also called Moron. Every inch of my body screamed in protest, except for a tiny spark, an ember hidden in my guts that was loving every second of it. Unless that was just the food poisoning. Let us light our inner spark and let us climb. Let us traverse the perilous ridge between sentimentality and toxicity, and let us climb again. Let us have amazing, ambitious, genuine, realistic, and serious aspirations that we do and we keep doing. Let us joyously celebrate each failure as we rise toward these heights, and let these failures reinvigorate our efforts. Let us share our experiences of this falling and climbing and falling again, wherever it is possible, whenever it is needed to be an outlet for frustration or a light in the gloom or answers to the problems we have or just for fun. And let it be known that we are serious in these pursuits and that we believe in the inherent value of their funniness. Let us be serious and let us be funny. Soul humor is possibility exercised, common sense dancing, the synaptic thought that can alleviate, divert, and solve, which, when shared, will ultimately save the human race. Today, under this centennial dome, let us ask ourselves, of what humor will we partake? Will it be the humor of toxicity? Will it be the humor of sentimentality? Will it be merely functional? Or will it be the humor of the soul? All of us gathered here today play a part in shaping the answer. Thank you.